Would you do something different next time?
I'm not sure. Well, let's talk about it first. I have no idea. Actually, what could we do different?
To summarize what happened after this, Michaela, how would you describe the last couple of weeks?
That was a very weird turn of events. Because all scientists there were under threat. Some scientists received death threats. Some scientists lost their job. So you would say, okay, these are all people that are not following the mainstream narrative and they have paid for it, a big price. But now within that group, they are backstabbing another scientist that had a similar experience already. But that is really the most difficult part because you don't expect that, it's a kind of friendly fire somehow. So
the question is, what do we do about that then? Professor Schippers, may I ask you some questions?
yes, of course. What do you want to know, Rico?
It's November 13th when we record this unforeseen part 6 of our report about causes, consequences and cures of the lack of scientific freedom in your home again, Michaela, on a Sunday afternoon. Now, when we set out to make our report, we decided to crowdfund some of the expenses that we would make. I find it important to, what's the English word, to be held to account. Be transparent about what we spend it on.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to do here. And thank everybody for being a producer of sorts of our report. I mean, you made it possible. So we'll do that in this conversation. Follow the Science is not for profit. We're not making money of this. So why are we doing this, Michaela?
Why are we doing this? To make the world a better place?
Make the world a better place.
And to make sure that people get more even information, that they get to hear from both sides. Because it seems that a lot of information is being suppressed these days. And lack of scientific freedom is also something I write about in my papers. I'm working on a second paper where I write about the lack of scientific freedom and the consequences of that. Because if science can't be done we know how important that is, but still we see that a lot of information is being suppressed. Even scientific papers, if you put them on Twitter or on YouTube, it can be taken off if it's not the mainstream narrative. So that's really shocking.
So we didn't set out to create a sixth part of...
no, it turned out to be quite an adventure, to be honest.
I thought that was the last thing we're going to record, was at the skate court, the rollerblade court outside that venue is a big word, where the presentations were.
Yeah.
So let's revisit the introduction that I made to the part 0 of sorts of this report, and hear your story. How did you came across the lack of scientific freedom event? And how did you reach out to the organization? Did you know them? How did that go?
Actually, a filmmaker who wanted to go there attended me to it. And he said, well, I talked to Peter and he said, I'm talking to the wrong people, so you can't come. Which I found a strange reaction. And I said, well, this is really a conference I want to go to because John Ioannidis is presenting there. I'm working with him. And some of the topics are really close to my heart. There were some psychologists presenting about fear and the effects of fear on people. So all of the talks were interesting to me, and it doesn't happen often that in a conference all the talks are interesting. So I decided to go there, and then I thought, well, maybe it's a good idea to kind of combine that with follow the science, because this is also very interesting for our viewers.
Would you do something different next time?
I'm not sure. Well, let's talk about it first. I have no idea. Actually, what could we do different? Because
I was taken aback by the course of events that people can see in the introduction. But let's run through your course of events. So you reach out to the event organizer.
Yes.
And then propose to take a filmmaker with you.
Yes, so I was like, because it was also online, and I thought, I want to go there, and I want to also talk to John Ioannidis, because I'm working on a paper with him, and so make an appointment so I don't have to fly to Stanford University.
Which is in the United States. So
which is in the United States.
Exactly.
This is quite a bit further.
Yeah.
So I thought so there's all kinds of things that make it very interesting to go. And so usually I go to conferences, but I hadn't been to a conference in 2 or 3 years, I think, because of the Corona situation. And this would be my first conference after the whole Corona thing.
Okay.
At least the one in abroad.
Yeah. So all is good. You pay for your conference, flight and lodging. For me, comes out of the crowdfunding that we did.
Yeah, we want to let our people who contributed know what we did with that money.
Yeah.
And it was not only for that event, but the thing is, I'm funding 3 initiatives from my own money, and it became unsustainable. So I thought, okay, this is the first time I think I really need help from the public.
Okay, so that's what we did. It found the cheapest flights that I could, cheapest hotel that I could, and I didn't know what we were going to film off the rooftop of your hotel, but we talked between ourselves. That was episode 1. Then at day 1 of the conference, I asked the organizer if I could film. It was okay. I asked the other camera crew if I could film. That was okay. No objections. No pictures on the wall saying no photography or whatever. No instruction in the
manual.
No, it's a program.
In the program,
in full color printed program. No remarks, which you would typically have on a commercial event. Yes. And also I was allowed to film. So
yeah, and on conferences I've never seen it before. I've never looked for it, but I've never seen anything like you can't film, you can't make photos. But the thing is, we asked literally, because I asked first, can I bring my filmmaker? And the organizer said yes, come. But then I wanted to make sure that you wouldn't be there and they would not give you access. So I thought otherwise I go alone, and then we're not going together. And then he said, yes, you can film. That was in the email. So I had a confirmation on email that it was okay to film. It was very brief, but still.
Yeah, and very professional. At the start of the first day, Peter remarked, there will be some filming and photos here. I'm sure you'll all accept that, because in contrast to many people in healthcare, I'm convinced that those who are here have nothing to hide. Which is true. I thought that was a nice opening remark.
Yes, well, I thought maybe if people do have a problem, then it's a bit hard for them to say, hey, I don't want
Not if you're a presenter. I mean, if you're presenting at a seminar and there's cameras there, either you are accepted to be filmed or you talk to the person organizing it.
True, and it's an online event, so there were online viewers, but also, it was clear from the start with 3 cameras there.
Okay, so at the end of day 2 at the conference, the organizer and the person of the other film crew asked us not to use our recordings in full, and we agreed to that. We would not. Yeah,
he came up to us and said, "Hey, I didn't know that you were filming everything, but we don't want you to use everything in full." And we said, "Well, we don't intend to, because it's 10 hours of footage. We don't want to put that online."
Yeah. So and also he wanted to formalize that, so I volunteered to let me put in writing what we're agreeing on here. So if it's not according to your perception of what we agreed upon, you can respond to that.
Yeah, and I remember he was really big smile when I said we can put a link to the paid content under our footage.
Exactly. So I haven't mentioned that before. It is our understanding that the organizers of this event intend to put everything that they filmed online behind the paywall, and I encourage you to go watch that, depending on what they're going to charge you. But the sessions were of high quality, so you really want to see that. And that's why we said, well, we'll happily link to your site and use our footage, such as we mix it as promotional, as it were.
Yeah. So we also propose to give our footage and to share it.
Exactly. So I wrote an email the 26th. I was home already. Your flight was a day later, confirming what we had agreed upon with the organization there. Send it to you, and you forwarded it to them.
Yes.
With a bit of text of yourself.
So the 26th of October, as promised, our filmmaker Rico Brouwer wrote down how we envision use of the footage. Of course, we are very careful to make sure it's done with integrity, as it is our aim to make the world a better place, not to score in any way.
Dear Mr. Gutse, my name is Rico Brouwer. I filmed large parts of the Lack of Scientific Freedom conference in Copenhagen. The 25th, you, your documentary maker, Michaela, and myself agreed I would put in writing how I intend to use those recordings. We will publish through Michaela Schippers' open, that is, not behind a pay or membership wall, channel called followthescience.nl, which hosts interviews with scientists and videos we make describing certain psychological and behavioral phenomena. At the event in Copenhagen, we recorded 3 such interviews during breaks with some of the presenters, and 2 interviews between Michaela and myself. We intend to publish those 5 topics with clips taken from the presentations. In editing, you'll find I'll have used bits of some of the presentations, like a visual management summary, if you will. We'll link our report to the event website should people wish to review the recordings in full. I will not now or later publish any of the sessions in full. Of course, we'd appreciate it if you would refer interested people to our output as well. We publish what we make under a Creative Commons license, so that's free to share. So how did the event organizer respond to that, Michaela? And feel free to read it, I've got it here in the middle.
Yes. So the organizer responded by saying, "Dear Rico and Michaela, thanks for your appreciation. I'm very happy that we made it. I copy Janus, the filmmaker. As I said yesterday, we would like to see what you intend to upload before you do it. This will not give you problems and could even be helpful for you. But it's our safeguard which we find important."
So, to summarize what happened after this, Michaela, how would you describe the last couple of weeks?
That was a very weird turn of events. Like, this was all collegial and very happy that we came, of course, and there was kind of a collaboration, and we offered something, and we could film, and we offered everything to them as well, so that there would be a win-win situation, and so far so good, you would say. But then all of a sudden there was an email that I think first there was the email of the event organizer saying, okay, we have to be very strict in what you can publish. And we were like, okay, but we never...
I have that here.
Yeah.
So the organizer said in his follow-up email, in addition to what we communicated earlier with you, we unfortunately cannot allow the publication of more than a minor number of minutes from the meeting.
Yeah.
And we never agreed to a minor number of minutes. I'm not flying over to Copenhagen filming 10 hours of footage for
5 minutes.
5 minutes. That's not going to happen. He said it was a paid event under copyright and that we had kindly accepted those terms during the meeting that we had, but it wasn't in the minutes, and he didn't respond to that. So this was new.
It was totally new. I didn't know. Yeah.
That's not the way copyright works. Okay, so then we're dealing with what the scientists at that event were arguing happened to them after they published papers that are not following the mainstream narrative.
Yeah.
How are you dealing with that, Michaela?
I don't know. So this was already a little bit strange. I'm like, he didn't impose any constraints beforehand, and now he tries to do that afterwards. But okay, I still want to have this win-win situation. So I propose to do 10-12% or something.
Yeah, what you mean is if you film 10 hours, 10% would be 1 hour.
Yeah, would be about 60 minutes. Yeah,
60 minutes exactly.
So I proposed that as a win-win situation, and then all of a sudden we got an email through the organizer from his filmmaker saying that we couldn't do more than 5 minutes, and otherwise he would give us a €100,000 fine and also start a lawsuit. And I was like, where did that come from? I have no idea.
So what happens with you when you read these things?
Well, I get some palpitations and I'm like, what is going on? What did just happen? And at the same time, I think this is unfair. It's ridiculous to some extent. So I need to talk to you first and then see a lawyer, I think, because I'm not an expert in copyright, but this has nothing to do with copyright, I think. This has something to do with trying to forbid something you already agreed on and try to pull it back. After the fact, yeah. Okay.
So if you can manage to step back and observe what's happening here, this is on your area of expertise as a professor in behavioral science.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be on the same side. And at the beginning of the event, we said we're proud to be here, proud to talk to these people, to the people presenting and visiting this event.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of this happens.
Yeah, it felt like that I was being manipulated into behavior. Like, okay, we're gonna use such big words because how can he prove that we did him any damage at all? So it's not a very clear case for them. So I felt really threatened, and that they were trying to use really force on us so that we would say, okay, we will back off and we won't do it, because I told him I was paying this from my own money, that I'm doing this on a personal title. So he knew we weren't a very strong organization that is not going to be scared by this. Well, I wasn't really scared, I was just taken aback. And I thought, okay, but if he would have, been in this collaborative mode, and we could, I could go very far, pretty far, of course not to 5 minutes, but in negotiating.
Yeah, we never got any feedback, substantial feedback on what we created. It just was scaled back to 5 minutes or nothing, otherwise
we sent in
the lawyers. Exactly. Yeah, but the question is, how does that affect your decision making? And is this something that you would have studied before, or is this something that you would teach on these mechanisms, and how can we avoid them? How can we escape from this?
Well, the thing is that it now seems, so you would expect to be attacked from the outside, but it now feels like an attack or a stab in the back from the inside. So from people who are supposedly on more or less on the same side, because all scientists there were under threat. Some scientists received death threats. Some scientists lost their job. So you would say, okay, these are all people that are not following the mainstream narrative, and they have paid for it, a big price. But now within that group, they are backstabbing another scientist that had a similar experience already. So
yeah, so the question is, what do we do about that then?
Yeah, it's a bit hard to distance yourself from the situation when you're still in the middle of it, I think, to some extent. But what I thought was, okay, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna give in to a threat, because, yeah, I've been doing martial arts for 35 years. I know how that works. They act like they're really, really strong. Yeah, oh, come on, we have to fight it out first. So
it's not that we're looking for a fight. I feel through this the last couple of weeks that as long as we're in fighting mode, there can only be losers.
This is it has turned into a situation where it's impossible to create a win-win situation, because if you threaten this, and the next step was, so this was a step, and I said, okay, I'll await your lawsuit with confidence, because I gave it to people who know a little bit about copyright, and they said, you have a very strong case. It's nothing. There's no restriction imposed beforehand, and you cannot, after the fact, impose all kinds of restriction randomly. That's not how it works. And so I said, okay, I'll await it in confidence. And then we got an email. I'm not going to argue with you any further, and we'll send in the lawyers. And okay, fine.
That was not the only thing that happened. So we are in the middle of this. But we received emails from people that were reached out to with what I call in the introduction, slander, defamation, even.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Also, they wrote my organization. So they wrote a letter to the dean, and they told them that we were making an anti-vax film. And that that I was about to commit a criminal act by putting this online, by even saying that I'm going to put this online.
Okay. All right. When we started on the rooftop of your hotel, I said, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'll approach this with an open mind. I have to say, I'm disillusioned in science the way I'm disillusioned in politicians and in mainstream media journalists. How do you look back, Michaela?
Yeah, I'm really it's really sorry, because it's a professor doing this to another professor, and there was no reason whatsoever for me or anything we did or said, or because I think we have been very polite. Every conversation has been in going into a win-win mode, and then we talk about that we need change, that we need And this is a person who has kind of fought the system for a long time, in the sense that he wrote a book on how medicine is the third leading cause of death in the world. And I think, how can you, because and you've done that, and how can you, I don't know, accuse other people of being anti-vax and I don't know what. We were talking about academic freedom, and this is not academic freedom. This is the opposite of it. But I would expect it from almost any place, but not from within that same conference.
So, okay, so in closing, we have had a great event.
Yeah,
I'm looking back there on that thing, everything I learned there, with respect for all the presenters that went through all this. What I'm still not, I need to learn more. So what's happening in this group as a group of people that are fighting amongst themselves, and how can we prevent that? Does your profession give us any guidance there on how to prevent that?
Yeah, that I know how to prevent it. Have a common goal, and a clear common goal, and we still don't have that. But the thing is, what I see happening, the mechanism that I see, is that within groups that think, okay, we want to fight for this better world, like a person like, let's say, Matthias de Smet. He's a professor in psychology, and he's very well known. And there's other professors, a couple, literally a couple, that is writing.
Not too many.
I think it's Breggen and Breggen. No, they're
okay.
they're literally a couple.
Okay.
So they're married. That's what I mean. And so they're writing that the theory of Matthias de Smet is not right, and it's a mass formation theory, and he's blaming people for not doing enough against the oppressors. And at the same time, they, in the same article, I read it, and then they say he is a controlled opposition. And then I think, okay, where do you get that conclusion from? There's no evidence for that. And so it feels like within the group of people that have similar ideas on, okay, a lot of the information that's out there is being suppressed, a lot of information is incorrect, we have a different theory about what's going on. And then they say, we don't agree with this theory. Fine so far. But then why accusing each other from controlled opposition? I don't even know exactly what that would be. And
most, I would make that statement, most controlled opposition, when it's labeled like that, is people self-censoring and not going the full length in being open and daring to stand for transparency or stand for the research that they did out of fear, maybe.
Yeah. So are we creating? The thing is, if you and that's what I've told before. If you don't know if you're only against something, okay, I don't think that we are going in the right direction as a society. But the main thing is to think about what you do want society to go to, which direction you want to go in. And there's not a common vision, I feel, and people are then fighting each other also within the groups. But that is really the most difficult part, because you don't expect that. It's a kind of friendly fire somehow. It doesn't sound as friendly as.
Are you looking back on your? I'm looking back on myself as being naive, not to expect what happened. How is that for you?
I don't think we could. How could you expect? I've been to conferences all my life, or at my academic life. And of course, this is the first time I brought a filmmaker to a conference. That is different, but how could you expect this? There was no indication whatsoever in all the emails. Everybody can read them. We can put them in the film.
I'll overlay the images to this conversation also.
Yeah, I even said, shall we talk beforehand? So everything was very collegial until it kind of flipped and turned. And
we hope you enjoyed this report nonetheless, including these parts where we try to
make sense. We make sense making.
Yeah, and be transparent on how we use the funds that you helped us with, and how we reported on this event to the best of our abilities with transparency, such that we have to give that.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.